Hi everyone, welcome to Ignite Entrepreneurs. My name is Daniel. Ignite Entrepreneurs is a podcast that helps people become entrepreneurs, especially Caribs, and it's designed for people of the African descent. Today we have with us the Queen of Caribs. I call her Mayor, in the person of Sally Martin. Sally, you're welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, how did it all start? How was growing up for you?
Well, life is very simple. When you're growing up, everyone is happy. Everyone, people are just friendly. People are, you're very innocent. You don't even realize how much harm and chaos and things go around in the world. You just wake up and go to school, eat food, and come back. And then you start to grow and your brain starts to develop, and then you start to see all these things. You start competing. Everyone wants to be position one. Everyone wants something better. Everyone wants to, become the first in athletics. Everyone wants to. So as you start to grow up, then you realize there's just so much competition and so much that goes on into sustaining a livelihood, basically.
Where was growing up? Was it in Canada or outside?
So I was born in Kisii, and at the age of 5, I moved to Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya. And I moved with my mom there, and life was interesting, going into the city. I think as a child, you don't even notice the differences because you make friendships so easily, so quickly, compared to, when you're very old. And so I didn't quite necessarily feel the shift, I hear people say, oh, I'm going to miss my friends. I didn't have that in mind, I was just happy I'm going to another city. I'm going to the city. And sure, it was beautiful making new friends, really getting into the hype of the city. And I think that's one beautiful thing about being a child, we don't look back too long. So it was a very great adjustment.
Sounds like you miss childhood a little bit.
Oh, yes. I had my best and greatest of memories as a kid. Even though life was very simple, we were medium, close to poor, but still everything was really beautiful in all its shape and form. And you don't realize you lack as a child, as long as there's food on the table and you are able to get to school, for me in that moment, at that time, I was very content, and then now with the competition starting, as you grow older, and then you start changing your thoughts, your ideas, your perceptions and perspectives around the world and people, and here we are.
Interesting. As a child, children have dreams. Children have fantasies. Did you have any dream of what you wanted to become growing up as an adult?
I think it was very popular, especially where I come from, that you were either to be a doctor or a teacher or a lawyer. I think I always thought it wasn't quite the dream, but because of the parental societal expectations of what is ideal when you grow up or what careers are ideal, I think my ideal career was a doctor or like a captain, or pilot. But I wouldn't say that is something that as I morphed into adulthood, I wanted to be. not even to date. I know my family wanted me to do nursing. Obviously, North America is very popular with the African community, but I decided to follow my passion.
When did you discover your passion?
I was in high school, and I remember reading books like The Power of Positive Thinking. I think I was 11 years old, reading Paulo Coelho's books and Steve Carnegie. And for me, I loved numbers. Actually, after high school, I wanted to be an accountant or financial analyst. And so I was so into business. In high school, I took business. I loved business. But I wanted to major in accounting at that time. Then after high school, when I came out of high school, I wanted to take accounting. And then realized, oh, there's another world of business, beyond accounting. And so I took business studies when I went to college, and I started running a small business at the time of car rentals, and and slowly grew and started getting contracts and tenders and really diversifying business, and that's how I got into business. And then I dropped all the accounting stuff. Well, when I was doing business studies, I did a little bit of finance, so that kind of really helped me when I was doing business as well.
So what age exactly did you start business?
Wow. I think I was 17. At the time, I actually started getting clothes from Uganda and bringing clothes to Kenya, and I would sell clothes.
At 17?
At 17, yes. My mom has always been my business partner, and she has a very good business acumen as well, and so always really supported me in my dreams and anything that I ventured into. So that was very great to have, especially at that age. Yeah.
Interesting. At 17?
Yes.
What did you do with your profits at 17?
So actually, at first, I started investing in stock market blindly. I didn't even know what stock market was. I remember I first bought my first shares at the time, which really flopped. The Safaricom shares, they were very popular at the time. It's a telecommunications company. But I was feeling really good that, I can invest in something. I had zero clues about stock market. I just knew it's like investing in air and hoping that, you will sell it at a profit someday when there is high demand for it. But that didn't do very well. And so I redirected that into, investing in property. Land is very common in Africa, as you may know. So I started doing that. But I remember I just felt like it wasn't enough, And my family and I, we always helped kids, especially my grandma. She always had kids staying with her and supporting them, kids that were coming from underprivileged families. And so some of the proceeds would actually go into, supporting grandma with finances to be able to sustain the kids and be able to send them to school. And so eventually I started going to children's orphanages and, taking maybe sacks of food and entertainment, and slowly started getting into community and realized that I had so much fulfillment when I gave back to community and saw other people be able to succeed just because they've come into contact with me, or just be able to make any form of impact in their lives that was positive.
Interesting. So you kept doing business, you kept making profit, you kept giving back to society. What was the main thing that was motivating you? Was there something from the books you read, or something your mom said, or something you observed in the world? What kept, because I know you must have come across obstacles. So what kept you going? What was that thing in your mind that kept you going?
Adversity. Adversity was a great, drive for me at the time. As I said, my family really underwent a huge setback, and we got really poor at some point. When I was in high school, my mother lost her job, and bills were becoming hard to pay. School fees was a huge challenge. And I remember, though, every time my mom would tell me, when even when I was younger, because our father didn't support us much. And so every time my mother would say, your money is so important. Work hard for your money. Don't ever let anyone or wait for anyone to support you financially. And so that statement has stuck with me today. And so as soon as I stepped foot out of high school and went to the city, because I had to go to, the rural areas or the village to finish part of my high school, because of school fees. And after setting foot out of high school, I was so determined to. My family was in a very bad place. It was very rough and it was very thick. I was very determined to get them out of there. That, in addition to my mother's statement every time, was just ringing in my mind. And I'm like, I gotta get my own money. I gotta get my own. I gotta be able to be independent. So for me, the key thing was to be independent.
Financially independent.
Yes.
And to possibly meet a need.
Yes.
Yeah. Was the need also a motivator, like the need in the customers, clients, community? Was that also part of the motivation? Did you see people really needing a service or something?
Yes. So actually, after high school, I started selling cars. Before I even started business, I didn't have any money at the time, so I had to save up. And so I started selling cars, and it was a very lucrative business at the time. There was really good commissions and very good deals, and sometimes really good tips. So I really maximized on saving at the time, and then after saving, I started coming up with plans and ideas. Okay, if I save and have this target, what do I want to do with it? And that's how I started. Okay, maybe I'll try this portion of my saving to invest in this shares or stock market, and I'll take this portion of my savings to maybe buy a piece of land, and so on and so forth.
So you always had that vision of what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think I did, because my sister always laughs at me because she sees my ledger books. I used to keep ledger books even for my salary and for my savings and for everything that I earned, because that was very helpful for me to know, am I on the right track in terms of my financial goals? Am I overspending on things that are not necessary? Because, when we're struggling, sometimes there's so much influence. Let's go out for dinner, let's go eat this, let's go on a trip. And at that time, you really have to think about what are the priorities. So really prioritizing well was very helpful for me. I know I had friends who kept on telling me, oh, you gotta move on to, the posh estates and there's all that influence. And I said, no, I will stay humble. I will stay here right now. This is where I want to be.
Coming to Kamloops, we're skipping a lot.
Yes.
Coming to Kamloops, did you come to Kamloops with the mind of starting a business, or you just moved in to work and settle?
Well, so jumped ship. That's what I felt like. I already had an organization running in Kenya. Actually, Valid Dreams started there when I was starting to give back in the community and doing, women's empowerment in the rural areas or in the slums of Kibera, where we did a lot of empowerment to the youth. And so coming to Canada really felt like I had just abandoned, I had left all these things. And so it was quite a challenge, definitely. It felt like abandoning your baby. And I know my family kept on saying, why don't you come back? Everything is like at a standstill. And that's one thing that I learned, it's always good to have a succession plan as whenever you have a business. So being here, that was a lesson, after moving here, because everything really depended on me. And so there was no one to steer the wheel after I moved away. My mom tried a bit, but she was more administrative, helped me with keeping finances together and accounts. But other than that, business development is a core of a business, and I think I took that with me. And so there was no one to really sustain those relationships and businesses that we had built over the years.
I know, that was why I jumped from home to, because it's always a sharp contrast from home to another place trying to set up and start life. It's just like, just dropped in the deep.
Yes.
But
yes.
Kamloops, did it have similarities to home?
No. Actually, when I came to Kamloops, I really couldn't have envisioned having a business in Kamloops. Maybe an idea, but it's not even something I would have thought, I want to start a business. The move was definitely difficult. And I moved to Kamloops for work. When I came to Canada, I was in Edmonton at first. And so I moved to Kamloops for work. So for me, my goal was at the time to just climb up the ladder. I wasn't even thinking about, business. But I went through a very dark period. And, working in social services, there's gaps you get to see. You identify and you almost have solutions, but sometimes, especially being in very established organizations, routine, people get so used to routine and really forget reevaluation of whether it's the programs or the services they're offering people. And so sometimes you would see gaps, or I would see gaps to, programs or services, but then unfortunately it's really hard to come in as a person of colors with ideas that are worthy of implementation, so to speak. They can be worthy, but hardly do they ever get implemented. But I was very fortunate actually to be at a workplace that allowed me that. I gotta give it that, because when I moved here, and I think that was the goal, because I moved with the same organization to Kamloops, that was the goal, that I would be able to, support and restructure some programs especially. But I went through a very hard transition, really relocating to Kamloops, and went into the deep. And I had a very dark time where I felt like I had lost momentum, I had lost track, and coming out of it, I didn't want anyone to go through that. And what made me know that there was a lot of need for something different was because a lot of people that I interacted, or people came to me or approached me, or I was in constant contact with a lot of people after I started interacting more with community, especially community of newcomers or immigrants. Even not just newcomers, even Canadians that were just moving into Kamloops. Some of them had a really hard time really integrating into the community. And so I thought, well, I don't want anyone to go through that isolation, that loneliness. And so that's how, we got together as a group and thought, hey, let's bring people together. For me, that was the first goal. Let's bring people together. And, just like it's in any business, you get into it and then you start seeing, there's this opportunity, or there are these partners that, see value in you and what you're bringing onto the table, and you can collaborate or partner to really to increase the impact or the programming or whatever the idea is. Because sometimes you might not have all the resources, especially financially, especially as a young nonprofit. It's very different from when you are starting a restaurant business or a business that is generating income or profit, For a nonprofit, you're waiting for funding so that you can be able to do the work or implement the ideas that you have.
How has the nonprofit world been?
It has a little bit of so many tastes. It's very mixed. It's, you actually get into it and then you realize not everyone has the best of intentions. Sometimes people have their own personal agendas, or sometimes some people actually take it as a business. They see you as a competitor. But when you're in the helping business, we're not competitors. We're here to help people. So how do we help each other to help others, not to compete? And so that's one thing that I think I saw and still see in the nonprofit. But my idea of nonprofit was very different. My perception in the past was, let's partner, let's collaborate, let's do this. But then you realize out there that that's not everybody's intention or idea. But I think there is definitely lots of nonprofits that are doing great with partnerships and collaborations, which is UN's number 17th goal, partnerships and collaboration. And I think it would be amazing if people could capitalize on that, because then there will be greater impact and people can be able to fill in those gaps together.
Yeah. What are the 5 things that really helped you along the journey in your business? We could start with one, could list it out, so viewers at home can learn from that.
Number 1, discipline. You gotta have discipline in business. You have to show up. Discipline means, keeping your records and really separating business relationships with personal family relationships. My mom, my sister, my family, they knew very well, including my extended family and friends. When it came to business, we really had to stick to business. I'll give you an example. I had a relative who was working at a restaurant, and that was when I was in Kenya. And every time her friends came, or, her relatives came, she always had to buy them lunch. Now, if you're operating a business and you do that to every person that walks in and every time that they walk in, you're going to run at a loss. And so having the discipline and boundaries as well, for people to understand that this is a business, this is what you do for a living, for you to be able to sustain a livelihood, pay employees, do this and that. That was really important in learning, especially keeping those accounts really help you know, am I making a profit? Sometimes I wasn't very good, at times I haven't been very good, and so those were kind of lessons too that I learned, and my family knew. Anytime we were doing business, it was strictly business. We can go and laugh, eat together as a family, that's separate, but when it comes to business, we're doing business. And so did my friends.
Interesting.
Number 2, I would say passion. Follow your passion. If you're passionate in something, especially like a nonprofit, it doesn't matter if you're making money or not. As long as you're changing lives, you will always feel that contentment from seeing other people succeed. At least that's how I feel when, I see somebody get a job, I see somebody get a home, I see somebody, make some progress in their lives. For me, that's one way, and passion has helped me continue to stay in, because there are times when you go so dry for so long, and honestly, even right now, we really don't have any huge database of funding base, but we still show up, and we still love what we do when we hear people's reviews and feedback, and just how they've enjoyed connecting with each other, or just little stories that give us hope and that continuity.
Discipline, passion.
Discipline, passion, be formal. Formal, I mean, formal and boundaries, especially with family and friends. I think we come from a culture where we do so many things very informal. Okay, I'll give you this car, you don't have to sign a contract because you're family. No, let them sign a contract. Let them understand the details of the contract and your expectations. And so I think having that was a very, very helpful tool, even for my friends and families, to understand that, this is business. This is what is expected of me, even as a family member or as a friend. Because sometimes some people will not take either good care of things because, or not put so much respect to them. So having contracts, really setting those boundaries down and clear expectations for them is very helpful.
I think it also helps them know what they can and can't do as well.
Yes.
And preserves the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
So that nobody's chasing each other down.
Yes. Yes.
Number
4 is letting go. Letting go in business is very crucial, because you're going to get disagreements, you're going to get misunderstandings, but you have to get to a place of letting go. Letting go the hurts that people put on you, whether it's potential partners or people you've collaborated, because not every collaboration or partnership is going to work. But learning to let go was very crucial, because after you let go, especially when I was in Kenya doing business, when we would disagree with people, the fact that they knew that I had let go, years down the line, we were still able to do business. 2 years down the line, they'd still come back. So we didn't agree today, but it didn't burn the bridge for a possible future opportunity, and you never know where you're going to meet people.
So letting go and maybe having conflict resolution skills,
Yeah.
not saying we had a fight, that's it.
Yeah.
It's in the afterlife. So you kind of need to still make amends and come to the table and share a meal, share a drink. Even if you disagree,
Yes.
you can still be friends. That's very important.
Yes. One of my friends, our business associates, used to say, "Don't get angry, get even." So, really staying angry in business is not helpful, and keeping grudges. So you really have to, if you're going to be in business and stay for long, because people are going to talk to you in rude ways, in ways that you don't expect, in disrespectful ways. So you really have to develop that skin of, is this worth hanging on to? And I don't think there's anything even worth hanging on to in this life.
Especially
in
when you
all
realize
honesty.
the vision, what you want to achieve and what you want the clients to enjoy. Number 5.
Number 5, wow, I'm torn between these picks.
You can have 6.
Number 5, I think, is put a team together of people that believe in you, because you're going to put your ideas sometimes to so many people, and people that are not business oriented would never see the idea the same way you're seeing it. People that are scared of risks are going to talk you out of it. People that, have different intent will try to talk you out of it. So put your team together. Know who's on your team. And put people that will believe in your idea and believe in you, because that will give you the fuel to forge forward with whatever you're trying to do.
Number 6.
Number 6, just take the step.
Take the bold step.
Take the bold step, and then you'll figure the rest of the way out. Sometimes we wait until I get this much money so I can start this business, or until I borrow this loan of this much money so I can start the business. Start somewhere. Start small. Don't fear the risk. You'll figure out. As long as it's not threatening somebody else's life or your life, just take the step.
It's not against the law.
It's not against the law. Just take the step. The rest of the pieces will fall into place when you start the journey. But when you're waiting for everything to be perfect, you might wait forever before you can even start. So just take the step. Take the fear away. It's hard sometimes if you've never done it, but just knowing that, hey, is this life threatening? That's the metrics I use. Is this life threatening? No. To me or another person? No. Does this break the law? No.
It's true. Because most times when they mine for gold never comes out like, oh, look at gold. It's always rough. You have
Very
to
rough.
purify and get, and even the water from the purification is also useful as well. Interesting. Now, as we come to the end, Kamloops is a place that attracts a lot of migrants from different parts of the world. We have Ukrainians, we have Africans, we have Jamaicans, we have people from Korea, all over the world. As a new migrant to Kamloops, what would be your advice to new migrants on how to settle and maybe find business ideas and all that? What should come first? Because some people get in and the first thing they want to do, I want to show everybody I've arrived, man. I'm in town. But, we're new. This is not where we're born. We're trying to earn a living. We're trying to dig our roots in and find life. What would be your advice to new migrants, especially people of the African descent that come to Kamloops? What would be your advice to them?
Stay humble. Evaluate your circles, and don't fall into peer pressure. I think sometimes there's that excitement, because it's so easy to get a credit card in Canada. It's so easy to get a car loan, which, when you're in Africa, sometimes getting a car loan would take a tooth and don't fall into the pressure of getting into debt. And I think financial literacy is something that people come here and sometimes don't have that knowledge, and even just the people that are here, that have lived here, and just the world, basically. Don't fall into peer pressure. Stay humble, set your goals, know your priorities, and make sure that you analyze them very well. And also set boundaries, because there's this idea and notion, as long as you've taken the flight to nowhere, that you are doing well. But far from the truth. The truth is, life is hard everywhere. It has its own hards, its own challenges and difficulties. So, put boundaries with family, with friends, with whoever. Just learn to know the limits, because people are going to try and say, oh, hey, so now you're there. How about $100 for dinner tonight? And that time, you yourself, you're struggling to even get that $100, especially when you're a newcomer. And so really knowing when to say no. I know we always like to help. I'm going to send my cousin, I have to send my grandmother, everybody in the village, so-and-so's grandchild. And so you can't save the world. And before you can save the world, the way they say in a plane, save yourself first. Then you can be able to save the world. But you can't try to save the world when you haven't saved yourself.
Sally Martin, thank you so much. What you've shared will go a long way. Some things we've heard, but you can't hear it enough. The more you hear it, the more it takes root, the more it grows like a seed that is planted. So thank you so much for making our time to come to Ignite Entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Ignite Entrepreneurs. We only bring you the best of the best information on how to become entrepreneurs, how to bring your passion, your vision to birth, and meet your own needs and meet the needs of your clients out there. So make it a date next time. Ignite Entrepreneurs will never stop bringing you rich info. Thank you for joining. Stay tuned and go ahead with your passion. Do some research and meet some needs and start that business. Thank you.